Hey, welcome to CS Connect. Today we're doing Pastor Chat with Pastor Pat and Pastor Lynn.
There you
Got
go,
that
man.
out. So Lynn, this past weekend, you were talking about being the light of the world, but you used a story from John chapter 4, a different perspective though, not necessarily looking over Jesus' shoulder, but as you mentioned, looking over the woman's shoulder. But you made a statement that I loved. You said, you've never theologized. Did I
Close
say that
enough.
word right?
Yeah.
What did you say exactly?
Theologized, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You
Yeah.
never did that. You never
Theologized.
someone into heaven. Unpack that a little bit because it's so good.
I think what happens, we all know that we're supposed to be the light of the world. We're supposed to be sharing our faith. And I think one of the things that causes us to hesitate is we go, well, hey, I don't know my Bible enough. And they're going to ask me something that I don't know. And I'm just going to tell you, I know my Bible. And I have never argued / presented, I've never theologized someone into heaven. That's not how people get to Jesus. And what it ends up ultimately being is our story. Who was I before I found Jesus? How did that happen? And then how has my life changed? And that story is the thing that's compelling for people. It's not your theology.
Yeah, Lynn, that's so good because I think most of us, that's probably our biggest fear when we think about talking to someone about, well, what if they ask me about? And you're saying that so often it's just our story.
Yeah, 90% of the time it has nothing to do with nothing. Matter of fact, most of the time when they ask you a theological question, they're just trying to divert you. And you can pretty much go, oh, they're probably not ready. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's your ability to say, hey, I found something that's real. Yeah. And I found something that has made my life substantially different. And when they're in a place when that makes sense and they know they need that, they're not going to be popping theology questions. They're going to be saying, help me understand. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's your story.
Yeah. Well, on that note, another thing that you said that I thought was so good, so full of hope for us, is you said that God placed us where we need to be. I think too often we start thinking like, I maybe have to go across the ocean, but you were saying sometimes just go across the street, right?
Yeah. No, honestly, I think this is one of the huge mistakes. We think, hey, I got to go down to downtown Phoenix and be at the rescue mission. I need to go down to Mexico and do a mission trip. The reality is you've been placed as a missionary wherever you are, whether that's your place of work or whether that's the neighborhood. And really, Jesus said this to us. He was very, very clear. In Matthew chapter 5, he talks about this idea that when you have light, which is what we are, you take that light and you put it in the most strategic place in the house so that the house is most deeply affected by that light. You don't put it under a bush, he says. Yeah. So he says, that's what I do with you. I mean, he's very clear. He says, that's what I do with you. So if that's true, then you and I living in the neighborhood we live in is not a mistake. Wow. We thought we did that because we liked the floor plan or we could afford the house. Yeah. The work group you are in at work, that's not a mistake. I know you don't like that work group and you think you deserve it better, but there's someone in that work group who you are their best chance to ever see Jesus. And it's Jesus who's placed you there strategically. And if we would start thinking that way, we'd stop being frustrated that our house didn't have another bedroom or that the work group is not quite the one. We'd all of a sudden be saying, I have been strategically placed, and there's somebody in this room who needs to rub up against me and see Jesus from me. And all of a sudden my life gets really, really different when I start viewing it that way.
Well, and especially in light of the story that you were referencing in John chapter 4, right, with this woman, she probably many times said, I don't want to live in this village.
Absolutely.
Why do I have to be in this community?
Absolutely.
Right?
She's the outcast of the village. If you would have asked her, hey, would you like to move? My guess is she'd say anywhere.
yes,
anywhere. And yet I desperately, desperately believe that before the creation of the world, before she was ever born, God looked and said, there's going to be a day my son's going to walk through this village. She's going to encounter him and her life be forever changed. And because of that, hundreds of others are going to come to know my son. I believe she was absolutely strategically placed in that moment, in that time. And when we think about her, this woman who had a life of such failure, that God used her and placed her, then all of a sudden we go, wow, man, I wonder what God is doing with me. And I wonder what opportunities, think about this, I wonder what opportunities to show Jesus I've missed because I wasn't thinking about my strategic placement.
Yeah. Can you imagine if we grasp that?
Oh my.
The enormity of that we are where we are.
Yeah.
Not on accident.
We would shine our lights a whole lot different if we thought that way.
In fact, you even made the comment that she ends up going to the last people on this planet that you would think that she would go to.
Well, I mean, stop and think about it. These people have hurt her, right? They've
Yeah.
wounded her. And if that's not enough, they know her story. They know all of her failings. How easy would it have been for her to hesitate and say, look, they're not going to listen to me. They've seen my 5 husbands.
Yeah.
They know the guy I'm living with right now is not my husband. They're going to think I'm a hypocrite. You know, I'm living this way and now I'm talking about Jesus, right? They're the last people in the world you would think she would go to. But there's something in her, and I believe this. I believe that she knew they were broken too.
Do you think that's why she went to them? Because if they were the last people that she would go to, it's interesting that they're the first people she went to.
I know. I mean, it is. It's just absolutely intriguing. And my guess, again, I'm reading in between the lines. I think there's some part of her that knew they're almost as miserable as me. That's why they're gossiping about me. That's why they're putting me down. And that she somehow, in the love of Jesus, saw their need and said, they need what just happened to me.
Yeah.
And she goes to them and gives them Jesus. And I think the reason that's powerful is because we've all got people in our lives who bother us. We've all got people in our lives who are the last people we would naturally go to. It's the crazy neighbors down the road, and their house is chaos all the time. It's that really obnoxious person at work, right? It's our family member that everybody else puts at the kid table. Because
you had to go to the family members.
There you go. And we all think, man, how did that happen? And why is that person in my life? And I think the possibility is that God allowed that person who rubs us the wrong way to be in her, so we would notice them. We would see their brokenness and say, boy, if anybody needed Jesus, they need Jesus. And then we would actually head to them first.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, if we could get that. If you missed this weekend's message, we encourage you to go back and listen to it. A lot of hope in that. Thanks so much, Lynn. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll see you this weekend.